Which one was it? Okay, everyone. We're going to move some things around on the agenda. Hello? Hello? Ramsey? Always wanted to do that. I thought this was used to throw at somebody. Oh, thank you. So cool. Okay, let's, Mr. McCormick, you want to address stuff?
Item 10 is the report by the Parks Commission Chair and Mr. Umeyer. And it's listed as item 10, but I'd like to get it out early if we could.
Okay,
So he can be done. And I've got 2 items that I'd like to pull.
go ahead.
Item 12 and 13.
And you'd like to pull items 12 and 13 off of the agenda. Did you get that, Yolanda?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, Douglas would like to move up item number 9.
Mr. Mayor, are we on the
Aye.
subject of anything wrong?
Sure, why not?
Item number 16, I would like to do that before we discuss any of the drainage items, because it has to do with having homes prioritize drainage projects.
I oppose it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, that one we'll vote on, but in the meantime, let's go to, Mr., do you mind if I put it before yours, Douglas? Just get him out of the way.
All right.
Mr. Kenny. There he is. We're going to move Mr. Kenny's item up due to the fact that he has to leave, go to work at 5:30 in the morning. We don't want anything to happen to you, Mike.
Somebody texted me and asked
Mike,
just because of reason.
Oh, yeah, I stopped it there. Yeah.
Okay, another item is discussion and possible action on waiving the prohibition against sale of and consumption or consumption of alcoholic beverages within 300 feet of a church or a public school during the Fiesta Castle Hills event on April 20th, 2019.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve that item.
Okay.
Additional the past years that we've done this. I don't see any reason why we should change that now.
We have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Mayor.
Is there any discussion on that?
Yes.
Somebody said Ustream has stopped. Did you disable it?
No,
I didn't
it's,
say what.
it's going.
Is it going now? I just
Yeah.
got a text that said it was off. Okay.
As a recess.
You're in the
We're
recent.
going?
Yes, we're on.
Okay.
Y'all are on.
Okay, we have a discussion on this, Ms. Winger, do you have a discussion on this?
Yeah, I have 2 concerns. I know it's probably to make money, which is always a great thing, but I believe there's a state law. The reason I believe that is that when they have the festivals in front of the Capitol, they can't serve alcohol. And surely the state would have the ability to lift it, but we are a subdivision of state government, so I'd like to be assured that we're not violating state law. Because it's not our idea not to allow this in front of church, within 300 feet of churches and schools. It's a state law. So I don't know.
I can definitely look it up again. Last year when we filed, TABC told us that because Castle Hills is its own jurisdiction, that Castle Hills had the authority over. And that's why we got the letter last year. But I can go back and ask them to make sure that we are in compliance with state law.
Okay, do you know the answer to that, Mark, offhand?
We'll have to look it up.
I think we need to look that up before we take anything else.
Since this was an item brought up by McGlynn and Scott, Ms. McGlynn, did you have anything to say on it or have anything to offer as far as proof?
So last year as a council, we amended our ordinance, our city ordinance, to allow a waiver of this issue. The item was researched last year. Council approved the temporary consumption and the sale and consumption of alcohol as long as CHCO or the organization sponsoring Fiesta only obtained a 3-day beer and wine permit from TABC, and TABC, the only thing they required is a letter from the city saying that we were waiving the 300-foot restriction.
Did you get that last year, John? Did you get that from TABC, the letter for us to move forward?
We didn't get a letter from TABC, we got a letter from you for TABC, which we then gave to
Did
the vendor.
TABC grant the, for us to do it?
Mayor, we provided I have a copy of the letter from last year, so they went to TABC in order to be able to grant this variance, which is a 3-day wine and beer permit issued by TABC for the event. We requested an off-duty Castle Hills police officer or Texas peace officer, adequate protections to prevent alcohol beverages from being brought into the event from outside the event or demonstrated, and liability insurance of the minimum amount of $1 million per occurrence, providing indemnity to the city and its officers and employees against all. So we have requirements that we sent them as a letter. They took it to TABC and got this permit.
I want to thank Ms. Winger for protecting the people of the great state of Texas.
Would y'all like a copy of this letter from last year?
No, we'll take the word for it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
I'd like to ask our police chief his opinion of this motion.
I think it's a good motion, but I think it's going to be found to be correct, that it's going to be okay enough to the city. I think what the state law, if there is one that references it, it would be like a permanent place that sells it, for instance, the beer and all or something. I don't think it's going to prohibit what we're seeking to do, but I agree, let's research it first, Councilman Gregory.
Then I'll make a friendly amendment. Then I move we pass the proposal, providing it's not found to be contradictory to state law.
That's what you do.
I second the
Okay, since we have a motion and we have a second on the table, you get that?
Yes, sir.
Other citizens to speak, I will make comment.
I think we have to give the citizens an opportunity to comment before we go. That's the only thing I think remains.
No doubt. Brother Dillon,
I did not sign up for number 9.
by 9 to me.
I signed up for 11.
That's more than that.
Oh. I want to let y'all know that I've been sick for a few weeks, and I took some, Advil, double spring. I set the alarm off twice in the house today. Okay. Brother Dillon is absolutely right, he did not sign up. So with that said, we have a motion, we have a second on the table. John has done a wonderful presentation. So all in favor?
We have to vote for the added thing on the motion.
Which was?
We haven't voted the amendment yet, but that's on the motion.
And we approve it, provided it's not found to be contradictory to state law, so I guess we have to vote on it.
Okay.
Speak up.
Let's vote on that, the friendly amendment. All in favor? Yes. And now the original amendment. All in favor? Yes. Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Go have a good time. All right, let's get back into the order, somewhat order. Discussion and possible action, proceeding with reconstruction. Okay, wait a minute. We were, Ms. McLean, which item is yours?
And
No, I think it was Mr. McCormick's item was the other one, he wanted the one Mr. Detmeyer's presenting.
Mr. Yadamar. Oh, yeah, forgot about that. Which was item number
10.
10. Yeah, 10. Parks Commission activity and progress report from Parks Commission Chair, Mr. Bernard Yadamar. Oh, that's what the tree's doing. Nice tree. That is a tree.
Apple tree.
What kind of tree is it?
It's an apple, Granny Smith apple tree. I bought it because I wanted an apple tree, but I brought it up here today so we can get our residents and community to plant more trees, because as a community, communities that have tree-lined streets are more resilient when stuff doesn't go well. So that's just another way we have them now. Most of our streets have trees covering them, but soon they may not be. So if we start planning now for the future, we'll continue to be resilient. All right, that's the truth. So I'm the Bernard Gedemeyer, chair of the Parks Committee, and we've been working on ways we can build community through parks, and with a budget of almost nothing, but not almost, but if we needed a budget, we'd go for it. But right now, we wanted to see what the desire is for parks and community wanting to get out there, play, and talk to each other, come together. As of now, we have Castle Hills Elementary that is open on weekends, and people are going there, families are going there. It's great. It's awesome sight to see, and I would like to invite everybody to go there on weekends. It's a great time. You can have a picnic out there. So just a fun time. Let the kids play, go around the track. I take my child on the stroller around the track while my other kids play on the playground. So it's a nice, fun time. And we are working on other schools in the area, private schools, to have the same purposes of playgrounds and on the north side. St. George, the Christian school, we're working on them too. See, what else are we doing as a... So the Parks Committee is made up of 6 people, 7 people. Robert Riley, Skip McCormick, Jack Joyce, John Squire, and Tanya Garza. And Tanya Garza just had to resign, I believe. But she was a great help with her ideas.
Mark Sanderson.
And Mark Sanderson is our vice chair. And Tanya Garza had to leave for family reasons, but she was a great help, and we appreciate all her hard work. Another thing we're working on is creating a fund or a charitable foundation, something where we have a tax ID number, so when people want to give us money for parks, they always ask for a tax ID number. So it breaks, well, as your tax ID number. So we're keeping around that idea, and then Mr. McCormick suggested, why don't we have, for the whole city, have a charitable organization for the city, and then we can earmark whatever donation is brought in.
I think you're off the subject.
That's number 11.
We're not discussing that.
Oh, sorry, I was just giving a report on what we're doing.
That sounds like a progress report to me. Go ahead. Mark.
And
Bernard.
so, as a park committee, we're trying to work with existing landowners who have playgrounds and want to better their community through the use of those playgrounds. To work out win-win scenarios to benefit the entire community of Castle. Thank you.
Mark, Bernard,
Yes.
let's go back just for a second on this. Nobody knows you can't get anything done without any money, right?
Well,
Okay, so,
nothing's for free.
That's an interpreted by 10. So this is the thing that we set up for you to do on the Parks Commission, and you're the chair. If you set up that YouTube on,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, because it's only an activity and progress report, it's not discussing, we're off topic.
Right.
I don't know anything. What I was gonna say is that if Mark sets up the fund based on part of his progress report, the mayor will give $1,000 to start that off.
And I'll give $1,000.
Man, that's awesome.
Okay, so with that said,
Thank you.
Right here too.
we got $3,000 right here.
Then I heard two.
Okay, so progress report, no progress report. Thank you for what you're doing, we appreciate it. And thank you, Skip, for leading that forward. And I get busy setting up a 50C, whatever it is.
I don't want to see through. Can I address that a little further?
Of course, as long as the progress report.
The next item.
That's the next item.
Can I bring up a question or two for Mr. Rapley? Sure. Mr. Rapley, you were looking into paving for some sidewalks and perhaps a queue lane around Honeysuckle and on the west corner of the school grounds. Have you looked at any further discussion with NEISD about that?
We met with NISD as far as phase one of being the sidewalks along Honeysuckle and partnering with them for residents to utilize the school. Phase two would be looking, exploring the possibility of a drop-off lane or a queue lane at the school to widen Honeysuckle. And we've just discussed the possibility of that. It's in the feasibility stages, and there's some things the city has to do from an engineering standpoint to see if that is possible. So obviously we can discuss it on Saturday at the Parks Commission.
And that's up for discussion. I bring it up because it's important for us to be looking at that because that Honeysuckle Lane area is blocked off by traffic substantially during parts of the afternoon when picking up students and that sort of thing. It's a problem for emergency vehicles. So that's just something that we were looking at.
Okay. Sounds like we finished with item number 10. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move to item number 11 while we're on it. So we can get this out of the way. Thank you, Mr. Umeyer. Sounds like we already got a well-established fund going here. Okay, item number 11 was to discuss the possible action to direct the city manager to consult with the city attorney to explore the liability of establishing a city charitable foundation. Mr. McCormick and Gregory?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is in connection with what Mr. Udemeyer was discussing. This came up first in the Park Commission because we were looking at ways to get a lot of charitable foundations that make donations of this sort will not donate to a city or to any entity which is not a 501c3 corporation and tax exempt under federal tax law. And having such an entity will enable us to accept donations from commercial foundations that have that limitation, and most of them do. So that's the whole purpose of this, and all we're looking at now is to set a policy to ask Mr. Rapley to explore that possibility with council and give us a report.
May I have that in form of a motion, please, sir?
I'll make a motion that we authorize Mr. Rapley to explore the possibility of liability in establishing a charitable foundation for the city to accept donations for various causes.
Do we have a second on that, please?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Anybody would like to discuss that?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
When we've looked into this in the past, I'm not saying it's always going to be the same, but when we've looked into this in the past, it's very complicated to set for 501c3. So what we've always done in the past, and it hasn't been a problem in receiving donations, you may be right, if you're talking to foundations, but we've always set up a special fund. And then because it's the city, it's tax deductible anyway. So I wasn't aware that other foundations would not be funded the city. You may be right or not.
It's true. commercial foundation development, I discussed it with Mr. Schnall, he's represented a number of these, and he has participated in these commercial donations in the past, and he advises me that they don't make donations that way. And I just took the grants writing course, and they advise me that they don't make donations of that kind.
Okay, we have a discussion. Douglas, if you want to say anything, Ms. McLean, go ahead.
Well, a quick search of the Texas Secretary of State's website for arts foundations and library foundations netted hundreds of results across the state of Texas where cities have formed Friends of the Library, city cultural and educational facilities finance corporations, they have arts foundations, so I think we're going to find that this is viable. It's a matter of whether council is willing to do something different to fund amenities for our citizens.
Thank you so much. We have a motion and we have a second on the table. And anyone else would like to speak? Hang on, I'm going to see if anybody wants to. Thank you. Brother Billy. Oh, thanks, brother. Okay, let's see if there's anybody else here. No, I don't see anybody else. Okay, so with that said, let's make let's call for a vote. All in favor? All opposed? It was unanimous. Thank you very much, council. Okay. Now, just go ahead, if you wanted to go ahead and we're moving along here pretty quick.
I think we need to go back to, waiting for.
Right, but the girls asked to bring 16 forward.
And I oppose that.
You oppose that, okay. Okay, so we, a council member has asked to bring item number 16, discuss the possible action on progress of the rank and prioritize drainage projects in 2015 master plan, McLean and Scott. We have an opposition to that, so Mark, what do we do? Take a vote on whether we move it forward on the agenda?
That would be fine.
Okay, so let's have a vote on whether or not we're moving item 16 before item number 3, 4, and 5. All in favor?
Of what?
All in favor of moving it forward? All opposed? Okay, let's move on to item number 3, discussion possible action on proceeding with reconstruction of Banyan Drive, drainage improvement on Glen Tower Avenue indicated by the master plan.
Maybe right.
1. Banyan Drive. Okay? Do I have a motion, please? Let's get it on the table for discussion. Second? Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Okay, let's start off. This is Mr. Gregory's item. Go ahead.
2 or 3 weeks ago, we met at a special city council meeting, which was open to the public, and discussed quite a few different items, all with regard to road and drainage reconstruction, specifically Banyan, Manton, Antlers, and Mimosa. These are 4 projects thoroughly vetted, except for Mimosa, and I think that's when we get to Mimosa, the engineer has a slideshow that he wants to show with regard to Mimosa. These are 4 projects that have been desperately needed by the city for decades. Several of them have been shown that there's a real life or death situation in some of them. Banyan in particular has been brought before the council. The process of this is the council discusses, we go out for engineering renderings, and then when they come back, we go out for bids, and then we choose. Right now, for this particular item, we are going out for engineering renderings with regard to the reconstruction of Banyan Drive. This is exceptionally needed in the city. We have the money to do it, now's the time to do it, or we can talk it to death for another 20 years.
Thank you, Douglas. Okay, we have an item on the table right now. It's been, a motion has been set forward with a second. Leslie, your comments on that?
No, I'm in favor of it.
Ryan, are you going to do a presentation?
Mayor, Mr. Cuellar from RPS is here to discuss not only scope but cost that was in the back of the packet, but I'm handing out maps that show the project in detail of the work being done. I have the maps available on the slideshow for him, just to, so the audience can see the same thing. The maps that I handed out are first in order with Banyan, because this is the item we're discussing right now, which shows the reconstruction of Banyan, and then the drainage improvements along the Lynn Tower through the outfall. And like I said, the engineering costs were in the packet. And if you have any questions related to that, Mr. Cuellar is here, and I can pull them up on the screen as well.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question, Mr. Claro. I have concern in driving this area all the time, that if you're making improvements to have the outflow come to along the access road, and we're stopping at the access road, this is supposed to flow back towards the drainage channel that goes behind the Wedgewood that will be the ensemble, that large drainage channel. Is all of that conduit that takes it from where it comes out from Banyan, where Glen Tower comes to Northwest Military, is the current drainage there sufficient to make the water flow where it's supposed to go? Or do we need to continue improvements down along the access road to make sure it's deep enough?
So are you referring to the outfall there on West Avenue,
Not West Avenue.
Well, so you're proposing that we make improvements between Banyan to the access road on Northwest Military that kind of runs the same direction as Glen Tower.
Yes.
And all of that water presumably flows down all the channels that go back to the drainage canal that's behind the Wedgewood. I mean,
Yes, ma'am.
everybody knows where that is. My concern is that are we pushing water too fast into the areas along the access road where we end up with flooding of the roadways, so we're just changing where the water is flooding? Or, so I have concern about that.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the case. We're going to widen that existing channel there, make some improvements to handle the capacity or design flows. So no, in my opinion, that wouldn't have an adverse impact to West Avenue.
No, it's not West Avenue.
Talking about Glen Tower?
It's the access road. There's a drainage ditch that runs the entire length of that access road.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, right. On Northwest Military. No, it wouldn't. Absolutely. Yeah.
So my concern is driving that every day, that's not a very deep channel. So if we are increasing the flow of water down Banyan so that it's running faster and not flooding Banyan, then we're going to end up flooding the access road before 10. And we're just changing where we're flooding the water. So I'm concerned that we're fixing a problem in one place temporarily to push the water someplace else unintentionally. So if we looked at the whole picture of where the water's going to be going.
Yes, ma'am. So, and I apologize, I'm in Northwest Military when I was saying West Avenue, but, and I know you're specific to the frontage road there, but what we would do is improve that channel. It is not, doesn't have a adequate capacity right now, but part of what we're proposing to do in that area is to increase that capacity to where that channel would convey the design flow. So it wouldn't impact that. To answer your question, in short, no, it wouldn't impact that frontage road there on Northwest Military.
No impact. Thank you.
The diagram here indicates construction limits are at the end of Garden View, Glen Tower Road, and don't show an improvement to the drainage ditch along Northwest Military Access Road, at least from what I'm looking at. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong one.
Is that Mr. Clear, the state?
The first sheet shows the reconstruction of Banyan. The The second one shows drainage improvements along Glen Tower behind, in line with Northwest Military Access Road to the outfall.
Okay, and that is included in the current proposal, is continue
Yes, ma'am.
along the access road. Okay.
The culverts underneath Glen Tower, then they're gonna be 3x4 or 4x5.
They're 4x5s.
And so you've got an awful lot of water going through those 4x5, you're gonna make that ditch fairly substantial.
That's correct.
Mr. Scott?
Okay. My concern, as stated in our previous meeting, was this is not going to, there's still going to be a river of water running down Carrollwood. This is not alleviating the amount of water coming down Carrollwood. It is not alleviating the flooding that happens at Banyan in Carrollwood that requires barricades to be put up every time that water collects there, correct?
So this will help some, but this is, so when we did our phase one master drainage study to really complete this project, you need to go all the way upstream to the city San Antonio limits, but this is the correct approach.
Downstream to upstream, I do understand
Yes,
that.
so we have, I mean, we have to start somewhere, and this will certainly lower what we call the tailwater conditions here, so this is gonna help this is the worst area right here, on this whole little watershed area, so we're trying to, I think the purpose is to try to eliminate, potential cars flooding into the ditch, and this is certainly gonna do a significant improvement. And this is, like I said, phase one of what we want to do, for this whole watershed, but
Have we had cars go into the ditch at this area?
my understanding is yes.
That was also the most, wasn't it?
That was this year, or 18, excuse me, but in years past, before the ballards were put up on Banyan, I think we had a vehicle go there, and that was the impetus for the ballards. Is that right, Mr. Gregory, I think? The water gets there, that's the deepest point for the water now. It moves faster down North Manton into East Castle and Wisteria, but that's the deepest pooling of water in the tailwater.
Correct.
Is there? Okay. And that would relieve that situation there. at the end
Significantly,
of
yes, ma'am.
Oakland Tower.
Yeah, this is a really, I think, a solid project, based on when we did both phase one and phase two master drainage plans. I think this was one of the most significant. I would say this is probably one of the top two, and the other is the one we'll talk about later, which is the Mimosa to West Avenue. So those two, in my opinion, in our opinion, are the two more significant drainage improvements the city should really consider moving forward.
And I would be very specific on what we're voting for on this. It is perceived just to the next step of this project. It's not to approve it in its entirety all the way to the end. Is that correct?
So what we put together in our cost estimate is to go, to move forward with full design, and go to advertise for bids, receive bids, and then present to council at that time and see if that's a project that you would want to award and move into construction, which we would certainly hope that that's the end decision. But what we're putting together is to go all the way, get this thing built.
Okay, but what I'm voting on tonight is just to finalize the design phase and go out for bids for the actual construction costs. But it's not actually voting to approve the construction costs themselves.
That's correct.
It's actually just to move forward with the engineering design by now.
Okay.
And
that's all.
then come back and
Exactly.
advertise for bid for construction.
Okay, I just want to know exactly what I'm voting on, just the design, then to go out for bid.
Yes, ma'am.
In council, I've handed this out before, it's a 5-year forecast of our funds for drainage, supplemental, and street maintenance. And just want to bring it to your attention, the ending balance right now for our adopted budget is $3.2 million for all of these funds. So just keep in mind that the cost estimate for the roadway for reconstruction of Banyan is about $622,000, and the drainage is about $807,000. So you would be essentially taken a portion of those funds to do this particular project moving forward.
And I have one other question. At what point would the upstream portion of this be looked at? Do we have that on the plan? I mean, it's in the master drainage plan, but do we have an idea of when we would be looking at the upstream? Because I hesitate to fix the downstream if we're not immediately looking at fixing the upstream, because the upstream is going to be giving the downstream a beat. And so if we're going to fix the downstream, when are we going to fix it?
Well, we've had this discussion at the time when we brought this to Banyan a few months ago when Mr. Gregory asked for the updated cost, is that either one of the phases could be done at this time. It's probably better right now to do the outfall. Mr. Cuellar and his group is now updating all phases of each project right now to bring forward to council all of these projects with probable costs. So at that point, we'll be prioritizing through the drainage side of the CIP. But this is one of the 3 phases in Watershed 3 to address right now, which is Banyan, Glen Tower, outfall.
All right, because we're being asked to look at 4 separate drainage projects right now. Are we addressing all 4 of those before we're looking at the upstream Banyan Carroll issue?
Yeah, those would be phase 1 and 2, and this is addressing again phase 3 of Watershed 3.
Okay.
So at some point, all 3 will have to be done, but right now, it's the water that flows down. Again, Carroll is capturing it from Glen Tower to the outfall instead of continuing down Banyan. And Banyan is in such a distress that it's ideal to put it in concrete right now instead of asphalt.
Oh, definitely the asphalt, for sure,
And it wasn't, we got these are the same numbers pretty much from when Councilman Gregory requested this item back in, I think, October maybe, and so there's not much change on the numbers versus asphalt and concrete.
Okay. I just had a question if that was coming up soon, the upstream portion of that, since we're looking at 4 downstream portions of 4 separate drainage issues on only 2 of our 5 watersheds. So that's why I was just, we didn't discuss that when the upstream at our last meeting. So that's the question I had. Thank you very much, Mr. Bear.
Okay. Leslie, do you have anything to say? Sure? Okay. All right. We got a possible action on this item. So, do I have something in the form of a motion, please?
Citizens to be heard.
Now we get your
Okay.
Julie Vincent from 203 Friends. I passed out a couple of copies of some photos from our yard. I had 3 sets, so you'll have to share it here. We live at 203 Friends, and I have spoken to several of you on council about this flooding that we experienced at our house previously. We moved into our home in 1998, and we have just celebrated 20 years living in Castle Hills. The flooding, as we know it, in our home began with the first October flood of 1998. Subsequently, each big flood after that, we have had up to 25 inches of standing water in our yard. One of you at one time even mentioned that a small child's life could be in danger in that flood zone. And that water stands there through the night and slowly for the next morning. I come to you tonight because I saw that item number 3 on the agenda was possible action with reconstruction of Banyan. I want to bring to your attention the flooding that comes from 110 and 112 Dogwood through the alley into our backyard and down between 203 and 201 Friends. And then on to Banyan. You could say that we are some of the headwaters of this Banyan flooding. The pictures I've shared with you are just a sample of the flooding that we have experienced. We also have powerful videos of the flooding, and I'd be happy to share any more pictures and videos with any of you at any time. When the alley between Dogwood and Friends is viewed, we are at the lowest point that valley between Northwest Military and Lock Hill Selma. This flooding is primarily in the backyard of our house, 203 Friends. 205 Friends is dry. Your house is dry at 207 Friends. 201, my neighbor's home, an elderly woman, Nancy Haston Foster, has put tubes at her back door to prevent the water from entering into her home because she too has had water. We have had water in our home on more than one occasion. I'm asking that the council investigate where some of this flooding is coming from. We're talking about the flooding that's on Carrollwood. It doesn't all just come down Carrollwood. It comes down Banyan, but it doesn't just come down Friends. It comes from Dogwood. The house at 112 Dogwood has built a berm in the front of their house to prevent the water from going into their yard. So I'm going to ask that the council investigate where this flooding is coming from and that this be considered as part of what you're looking at when you're looking at making corrections to Banyan. The most recent flooding was September of this past year, September 2018. And at that time I called the mayor. We had spoken to people about it off and on previously and nothing has really happened. The mayor was out of town, but he called me back and he said that he would put forth my concerns to the meeting. I suppose it was a meeting in September, October, but we've heard nothing. And so I guess I have a concern and a question. When things like the flooding are considered by the city and what to do about it, where is the forum for you to find out really what's going on from residents? Sometimes it's an agenda item, but no one has ever come to us and said, hey, what's going on in your backyard? And so this is a concern for us now, but it's a concern for us in the future in the sense of we'd like to maybe sell our house someday. And what's going to happen then if we can't sell our house because it's in a flood zone? So I just ask you to consider this when you're considering what you're doing with Banyan.
Since my name was brought up, I want to address some things that have happened. Yes, no doubt about it, I failed to get back with you on what is happening. You know, when we're up here and we're talking about different projects and things like that, I would like to be able to come out and explain also what's going on behind the scenes. There is, and it's not appropriate at this time, and that's hard for you to understand because you're the one with the 4 foot of water in your, or foot of water in your house. But there are some things going on that involve things north of, which I'm not at liberty to say right now, which goes all the way to the state level. And I will personally come by, or have someone else who is also involved come by and explain what is going on and the measures that are being taken. But as far as getting back with you on things like that, guilty is charged.
That's okay.
And I apologize to you for not doing that, but we are, I assure you, and you'll find out once we get out to the house and personally explain. This isn't something that we're trying to hide from the public. This is something that is going to be enacted possibly by the state legislature. And with that involved, it's not appropriate to get involved in a conversation like this. So I will be by your house and follow up with you.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. My concern is just also that, you know, I don't know who else is involved, and I don't know if we've had open forums for people to come to and discuss, you know, I know there's many houses that experience flooding and yards that experience flooding. So I don't know if there's been a town hall, a discussion of this where people can come forward and say what's going on, but I feel that that might be warranted.
I think that the people involved, and that means us, a lot of people involved, even 2, 3 possibly of the council members sitting up here who live in that area, know exactly where it's coming from. And have lived in, you know, that detention pond that is basically not a detention pond anymore. We've all lived there. She lived there as a little girl. I lived there, or there tubes down there all day long. Skip lives at the end, Douglas gets the brunt of it down so I will be by along with someone else to explain what we're doing. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Call for a vote, please.
Yes, sir. Okay, we're on item number 3, discussion of possible action of proceeding of the reconstruction of Banyan Drive drainage improvements on Glen Tower Drive and indicated in the master drainage plan. All in favor?
Excuse me, Mayor.
Mayor, there's a gentleman who says you haven't called him under citizens to be heard on this item. Item 3.
Second item. John, go ahead. We're going to need a secretary.
Probably my handwriting, Mayor, so I apologize.
Sorry. You're in there.
John Squire, 2 Chattington Court, as having some insight into these problems that y'all are tackling right now. I've asked and attending the meeting that y'all had, the workshop that y'all had, so I'm somewhat familiar with these issues and worked to help resolve some of these issues in the past. I just want to make sure y'all understand a couple of items. Number one, 95+%, that's in asking Mr. Cuellar, of the water that we're fighting is from the city of San Antonio. We're fixing to send, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. So we're fixing to spend, potentially millions of dollars to address an issue that is not caused by the city, that's unfortunately severely negatively impacting the residents of our city. So I would ask council to take this into account, that we're spending money on drainage that we should not be spending. That should go for infrastructure, should go for other issues that we fight in the city. As far as Banyan goes, I think paving Banyan with concrete at this point is a no-brainer. It should be done. There should be no question. It should happen today. If we're going to look at putting some additional drainage on Glen Tower, what is the true? I've heard nothing but conjecture as far as what is the true impact on Banyan. Council should ask, what is really going to happen once you divert that portion of water off of Banyan where it goes into that culvert? Is it going to be a 10% impact, a 20% impact, a 30% impact? What good is it really doing to Banyan by moving that water over and allowing it to continue down Glen Tower or underneath Glen Tower? I've heard the question. I'd like to, from the engineer, I'd like to know what is going on. Has there been any modeling done that confirms what the impact is on Banyan? I haven't heard that. You may have that information. I've heard nothing on that. We're fixing to spend a chunk of money on something like that. Also, the engineering costs. I assume you already have an estimate on the proposed engineering costs. I would like to know the proposed engineering costs before I agree to something. I assume you already have that. There's also a question that got brought up, I think rightfully so, is the liability of potentially, you're moving more water faster to Fort Wayne and Northwest Military. More stormwater runoff. It has a chance to build and then slowly release across there, and it does flood there. We all know that. But you're speeding that process up to get that water. Is there? And I would want an attorney's recommendation. I want something in writing from the engineer saying that 100% for sure this job that they're fixing to do or design will not cause any additional flooding at 410 and Northwest Military, because if it does, obviously I think the city could be potentially liable, and I would hate to see that happen to our city. The problem we have is there's no way for that water to really get under 410. That line, that hole is not getting widened, and we're going to stuff more water down there, and my fear is that it is going to be an issue, and I think y'all should make sure that we don't liable the city by doing this. I mean, I'm in favor of trying to correct the drainage, but I think we need to just get some more information. I mean, I say move forward, but get the information as part of that process. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I would like to amend the motion.
Okay, the motion's on the table, we also have a second, right?
Yes, sir. But you have to stop.
He also voted, but we. Really? We're gonna have to redo it, is that correct, Mark?
I didn't see any hands go up. I heard that you stopped it so that Mr. Squire could speak, and if there's anyone else on the list to speak on item number 3, it'd be appropriate to have them speak and then have the council move forward as it desires.
That's what I thought. Okay, all in favor?
She was saying Mrs. Scott had proposed an amendment to the motion. Before you just called for the vote again.
Okay, hold on here. It has not been voted on yet. I called it, and what happened was, John came forward and the attorney stopped it. Okay, because we, apparently I missed John on the thing. Now, do you want to add an amendment to the,
I did.
okay, well,
I would like to amend the motion that we proceed with the next phase of this design process if the engineers can show and prove to us that the increased water at the 410 underpass is not going to back up and cause additional flooding liability to the city.
Yeah, so part of the design that we'll be doing subsequently if we do proceed is fine tuning the modeling that we did a little bit of, I think, yeah, we did some modeling for sure on both phase 1 and phase 2, but once we get into design, then we'll really nail down everything, a lot of things that John mentioned earlier, so absolutely we'll look at that and do an analysis before we, as we design these improvements. But this is a common, anytime you do drainage improvements, and John knows this as well, you do speed up the water, right? But you look at, and it's done all over, everywhere, right? So you do drainage improvements, but you do look at your downstream impact analysis, and that's going to be part of our design, and then just confirm that there's not going to be any impacts. But this is a very, very common way of developing projects, coming up with drainage solutions, and then you move on to the next step and you do this design and you do the full analysis and everything. But yeah, we'll certainly look at that, and we can even provide an update as we move forward with design and give you an update on how that.
Mr. Mayor, I want to clarify, Mrs. Scott had asked to amend the motion to proceed with the next design phase, and if it could be proven that there would be no additional flooding at 410, which was the question I asked earlier. So we need to have a second on her motion, or on her amendment to be able to discuss it, correct, Mr. Shaw?
That's what I was trying to point out.
Yes, I will second the motion. Because my concern with the way this item is written with reconstruction, that can be interpreted a lot of ways. And so I like clarification that we would be going to the next design phase rather than using the word reconstruction.
I offer a friendly rewording of the amendment.
sure.
I'd like to suggest that we should read that we proceed, providing that the engineers take into account the water flow crossing 410 and provide data showing that the water capacity across there will be adequate and will not result in further flooding.
I thought that was what your amendment did.
That's what Mrs. Scott had proposed. That's exactly what I proposed.
Okay, good. All right, so we have an amendment to the motion,
I second
and we
it.
have a second. All in favor of the amendment, Leslie? You can talk about it.
I think the one thing that Mr. Squire asked for isn't addressed. He asked for a guarantee.
No.
That's all I want to know. That's what he asked for.
Okay.
As an engineer, I'm sure this is where it knows it's impossible.
I know.
So we have an amendment to the motion to, what is?
The amendment was to approve the next design phase on this project and make sure that it includes that there will be no additional flooding happening when the water goes into 410, we need to make sure that our maps don't carry the water going that far. We need to make sure that the water, when it hits the drainage area at 410, is not going to cause additional flooding.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's a,
I haven't seen that on
Guaranteed.
any of my maps or any of my plans.
well, I mean, generally, I mean, I'm not gonna design something, I mean, that'll be liable, right? I mean, I'm not gonna design something and present to you, something that's gonna cause somebody else to flood, of course. So we look at all that. So when we get to the design phase, we're definitely gonna look at downstream impact.
I think they just want to put it in the record.
Sure.
I just want to like to look at it.
And further discussion on this, when you say will not cause additional flooding, that assumes that San Antonio is not going to have more buildings.
No, I think the assumption is that the work we're doing on Banyan isn't going to push the water down the access road. I think that's all Mrs. Scott and I are worried about, is that we're pushing the water from Banyan to the access road.
There's no way we're gonna get a guarantee. The best we're gonna get is an engineering opinion based on current circumstances. And I think that's reasonable. If we find ourselves in a position where San Antonio imposes on us an additional flow of water, then we have to address that at some point.
See, I like your wording a lot better, because Mrs. Scott's wording is absolute. No additional flooding, no matter what. Regardless of what San Antonio does, regardless of this, regardless of that. Which I think your wording is very,
If I were an engineer, I'd have such comment.
Me too.
I agree.
So are you,
So are you making another amendment?
No,
we have to vote on the first one first, because there's a first and there's a second on Ms. Scott's amendment.
I don't think I ever got a second on my proposed amendment anyway, so I think we're looking at Ms. Scott's amendment.
And-
I'll call the question.
Well, you.
Well, I'd like to call the question too, but we're not sure what the question is. Go ahead.
I'm not saying that the water that we're looking at is what we have now, coming down, causing, it to back up at 410. I want to make sure that's looked at, that this additional water moving faster, the current water not, if we have another development in San Antonio, not suddenly, there's more water coming, but with the water measurements we have now, coming down, going across Banyan, diverting it, making sure that 410 can handle the water as it exists right now.
Yeah, we're gonna evaluate all the way to the downstream, outfall, which is right there at Northwest Military. So, I mean, we can analyze
You're
all the
stopping
way
at
down.
Northwest Military. My concern is as it crosses 410.
Okay, we can, do that. We can go to 410, we can go to the San Antonio River, we can go as far down. It's just, we do what we feel is a reasonable, downstream, impact analysis, but we can certainly look at 410.
But Louis, I think what we're stuck on all this thing is you can't really give us absolutes. You're basing what you're doing, your opinion on the water that is coming down. If San Antonio puts a splash down on the corner of Carrollwood and Lock Hill and dumps 1 million gallons of water down there, you're not going to be able to tell us that's going to be okay. You're talking about the water that we right now are
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and we have a second on the table.
I'd like to make another amendment.
No, this is a motion,
This is
there's
a
a motion
motion.
to amend, you have to act on the motion to amend before there can be another motion to amend.
Correct. So all in favor of Ms. Scott's motion, seconded by Ms. McLean? All opposed? 2 to 2, 3, did you vote? Opposed? Okay, 2, 3. Okay, now,
Can I make another amendment?
sure, go ahead.
I would like to approve the motion asserting that given current conditions within our control, Banyan water will not flood other areas. Is that acceptable?
That's right.
Ms. Winger has a motion on the table as read. Anybody second that? Second. Okay. Is there any discussion and can we move on? All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
we haven't voted on the item yet. What Mrs. Winter's motion or amendment did not address was approving the next design phase. And so I would amend the motion that we are approving the next design phase of this project. And I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and an amendment to second the design phase, and Ms. Scott seconded it. So all in favor?
No, wait a minute. That can't be because you had a motion on the table, you passed the amendment to the motion on the table before their motion came up.
No, but she added another amendment to the motion to do to make sure the design phase is next.
I believe Ms. Scott's original motion included the fact that we were looking at the next design phase. And then we weren't approving in construction at this point, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and that amendment was defeated, 2-1, 2-3.
No voted against it.
That wasn't the amendment, that was your original motion.
That was an amendment, that was my amendment to the motion, and it failed. 3-6.
Okay, what was the original motion? That's the question.
The original motion is to discuss and possible action on proceeding with the reconstruction of Banyan Drive and drainage improvements on Glen Tower Drive as indicated in the master drainage plan phase 1.
Okay, and now you're modifying that motion to say that you're approving the next design phase of this project. Is that
Yes,
right?
and rather than the wording of the entire reconstruction of that, just the next design phase of the project.
Can you modify that, Mark, after the amendment to the original motion is made?
This would be an amendment to, the current motion, as I understand it, was a motion by Mr. Gregory to proceed with the full design. I believe that was what came out of the discussion between several members of the council and Mr. Rapley, was that the motion was being interpreted to be that Mr. Gregory's motion was to proceed with the full design for the Banyan, et cetera, project. And that's been amended now to by modifying it by saying, assuming existing conditions, that it will not cause further flooding.
That is correct.
Mr. Mayor?
So we're voting on my motion as amended.
The reason for my second amendment is because the way this was presented and noticed for the meeting tonight is that we are proceeding with reconstruction. My problem with the word reconstruction is that means we are approving right now the expenditure all the way through this being done.
That's not-
And
That's
my
not-
understanding,
That's not what-
excuse me,
That's not what the
that
motion said.
Hang on.
is what the item on the agenda says. It
That's not what
uses-
the,
I think Ms. McGlynn's comments were well taken. I'll second her amendment.
Okay?
So now we need to vote on her amendment. Let's get on with this.
Call the
Yeah.
vote.
please read your amendment to my motion.
That we are approving the next design phase for this drainage project.
Well, you didn't take into account what the motion said, rather than that's what you have to take into account. I
Mark,
think we're doubling up, we're simply saying the same thing again.
well, let's say the same thing again and move on. Okay, so Ms. McGlynn has a motion on the table, you seconded it, is that correct, Mr. McCormick?
I seconded her amendment.
Her amendment.
Said we're talking about the next design phase in this project.
Okay. All in favor? It is unanimous.
Now we're going on motion.
Now the motion.
Now the motion. All in favor? It is unanimous.
Just to know, Mayor, that'll allow myself, the city manager, to work with our engineers to start that design phase.
What?
I said, just as a note, that will allow myself, the city manager, to work with our engineers to start that design phase. And once it's complete, we'll bring forward the advertising to bid for if council desires.
Appreciate that. Okay, so let's go on to the next item, which is for discussion and possible action on proceeding with drainage improvements for Mimosa to West Avenue as indicated in the master drainage plan phase 1. Mr. Gregory.
Item 4, it's an area of severe danger to the city. this was talked about, correct, before I even came on the council. Our engineer has brought up plans to discuss, to show to the council, preliminary plans, to show to the council for discussion, so we can vote on whether to proceed to have the engineers do their renderings. Engineer?
Thank you, Councilman. Yes, I believe we have some maps on that as well. Mr. Rapp. But we discussed this at our last council gathering, and we went through we had presented, I think, just one crossing, but after discussion, we felt that the appropriate limits would be to go downstream to West Avenue and improve the existing ditch, and as well as an additional low water crossing on
Primary.
right. So the scope of the project would be to install drainage culverts at both Primary and Mimosa, as well as improve the condition and the capacity of the existing drainage channel all the way down West Avenue. And by the way, Councilwoman Scott, we did, on this particular, know for a fact, we did do a model already on that, and modeled to ensure that there's no downstream impacts already as part of when we did the study for this.
I do remember you showing that.
Yes, ma'am.
It did go on behind into the existing drainage channel there that is definitely suitable.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And the water.
Again, with this item, the packet had probable costs, so you can see the total estimate or probability of these costs are opinion by RPS. This obviously would come totally out of the drainage fund. Like I mentioned to you earlier, in the last item of those projects, that would be split as well with streets and drainage.
Can I go make a motion that the,
And this does address watershed two projects in watershed two with the master drainage study.
okay. Can I move that we discuss and take possible action on proceeding with drainage improvements for Mimosa West Avenue as indicated with master drainage plan phase one? Yes, that was a motion I moved.
Can you say it again?
I am making a motion to discuss and take possible action on proceeding with drainage improvements from Mimosa to West Avenue as indicated in the master drainage plan phase one. And I second it.
Oh, wait a minute, that's not a motion. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
that's not good.
And the reason that it says we're going to discuss and take action. So are we moving to proceed with the drainage plan one for program on the street? Is that what you're proposing?
No, she's proposing that we move forward in discussion. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, we're in discussion right now.
That's what we're doing.
I'll move that we proceed with the drainage improvements on Mimosa as indicated in the master drainage plan, phase one, as far as the design requires at this point.
I second that motion.
We had a motion on the table now. We had a motion on the table by Ms. Scott. It was seconded by Ms.
It couldn't be a motion because it didn't state an action.
Okay, all right. So you did the action, is that correct?
No, I made the motion that we're going to pass this as stated, except with the addendum, as far as
You have a second on this,
program for this point.
Got a second on this one?
I second.
Mr. McCormick, I couldn't hear you. Mr. Howell was confirming the second. Could you repeat the second part of your motion, please?
Okay. The motion reads that I move that we proceed with drainage improvements from Mimosa to West Avenue as indicated in the master drainage plan phase one, as far as the design requires at this point. I'm not approving that we do complete reconstruction. I'm saying we take the next step in the design of the plan.
the engineering rendering.
Oh, the engineering rendering.
Yes.
Correct, this is just like the previous item where we need to move forward with engineering
That's not
first,
clear.
That's right.
before we come back.
That's what he says in his statement of what he wants to do.
Thank you, I'll second your motion.
I'm sorry, so please rephrase.
Come on, you guys.
I'm
One more time and that's it.
Yeah, you
Okay.
said you wanted to proceed with the drainage improvements.
No, he didn't.
Okay, what did he say?
I'm moving that we proceed with drainage improvements for Mimosa West Avenue. I'll rephrase it. I move that we proceed with the design phase of drainage improvements for Mimosa West Avenue as indicated in the master drainage plan phase 1. Is that more clear?
Yes, that is.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Do we have any discussion on this item?
I would simply withdraw my motion from Mr. Skip's first motion. So that's off the table. Now we're just looking at the new motion for the second. Call for a vote, please.
Thank you. We also have people signed up. So let's get that out of the way. Item number 4. No,
Yes.
4. Mr. Trevino. Mr. Squire, you ready? Please.
Mayor, Council, good evening, J.R. Trevino, 112 Hibiscus. I think all these projects are great, and it is a good idea for us to get started, but having been a part of the project before and working with the BRWM, the Regional Watershed Management, I think it's important for us to realize that San Antonio doesn't want to help us because we haven't put forward a step to say that we want to help as well. Every time that the conversation's been had, it's us telling San Antonio to fix their problem, which I understand. But in my conversations with local and quasi-regional leaders, if we could come forward and show that we're going to invest in a holistic solution, there's already plans that are loosely in place to take care of that. And my recommendation to the council is to figure out how much this total investment could potentially be and have that conversation with our regional leaders and say, look, we as the leaders of Castle Hills are willing to make this investment, and I believe, having seen all the infrastructure and knowing our problems coming from San Antonio, that we can have a greater benefit to more residents by having a holistic solution instead of trying to place Band-Aids throughout the city.
Thank you, Mr. Trevino. Okay. So, Mr. Squire.
Thank you, Mayor. Council John Squire, 2H Energy Court. I think Mr. Trevino has some sage advice for council. They should listen to that. In regards to this item, I think we need to consider the impact downstream, immediately downstream within the city, and when I'm referring to the top property. As I understand that, that's still private land, and any impact, any improvement that we make to allow that water to move, or that stormwater runoff to move into their land, could negatively impact their property, and I think that needs to be in consideration as you work on the design phase of this project should it move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Squire. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second on the table. We've had discussion, citizens to be heard. So, we call for the vote.
Yes.
All in favor of this item? It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Now let's move on to item number 5, which is discussion and possible action. Authorizing the city manager to advise for bids for drainage improvements for the North Mansion area of the city. What? Advertising.
Yes, Mayor, this design is 100% complete, and so we just need to advertise for bids.
Okay.
So moved.
So second.
Okay, so Mr. McCormick made the motion, Ms. Scott made the second. All right, any discussion? It's already been beat up. Thank you. All in favor?